Ulceriotis. Many people tried this level, but no clears yet. 1,009 feet, 0 out of 4,300 attempts. It's a standard traditional level with 4 pairs of pipes. There's the first one there. The first 3 have challenge sections and 1 pom-pom fight each. There's a kill all 3 pom-pom clear condition, and as advertised in the description, no checkpoints or power-ups of any kind. There's the second pair of pipes. And there's the entrance pipe to the third, the exit pipe to the third, and then the fourth and final pair of pipes has a challenge section and a Meowser fight that leads to the exit. Let's look at pipe number 1 first. Pipe number 1 features icicles and lava bubbles. Pretty simple, just make your way through. The second half also features ants, though they don't present too much of a challenge. And then the pom-pom fight. Then there's pipe number 2. Pipe 2 features Koopa cars, spinies, and semi-tight jumps over spikes that either involve the use of a Koopa car or bringing in a shell. There's also a pretty simple bully pom-pom fight. Then after that, there's a difficult jump, and you return to the main world. Then there's pipe 3 for the last pom-pom fight. This pipe was an interesting light precision challenge and required somewhat careful management of thwomps and on-off switches, especially during the pom-pom fight. After all 3 pom-pom fights, there was the final pipe to the exit. It starts out with a strange jump that I'm not sure if I know how to do as intended, then a walk across the room before entering an auto-scrolling section. This seems similarly very difficult with the on-off state on, but for some reason it seemed bizarrely easy with it off. After going back and forth a few times, Meowser enters the picture, though it doesn't present much of a threat since you mostly just run away. There's a bit of on-off management right before a Koopa car that doesn't seem to help too much, and then the final room. In the final room, you just need to get the 2 pals, kill Meowser, and you're done. Now to go about this, my first discovery was pipe 2 has a couple of spikes that are much easier if the on-off state is off. Pipe 3 lets you pick your on-off state. Pipe 1 seems entirely independent. Pipe 4 requires that you start with the on-off state on, but if you bring in a Koopa, you can flip it off by throwing it backwards and continuing on with that section. So the plan was to start with pipe 3, manage the on-off state, go into pipe 2 just before pipe 1, just because pipe 2 is more difficult than 1 and I wanted to get it out of the way, then pipe 1, and then the final pipe. With the plan in mind, I wanted to make sure that I could beat each of the 3 pipes individually, practice them, and then put it all together. So I wanted to start off with pipe 1. As it turned out, the fireballs were much scarier than they were difficult. The level generally lines up so they don't get in your way if you're moving somewhat quickly through. The room wasn't a big deal, but because it came last in my order of pipes, it was still a bit nerve-wracking. The ants seemed like the only potential challenge for this boss fight, but I never saw them move far enough into the arena to bother me. Kill the pom-pom, then return to the main world, and on to pipe 2. I decided to take a Koopa because taking a Koopa is almost always a good idea. My first playthrough was definitely more exploration oriented. I hadn't pinned down any speed strats yet. There were a bit too many fish in my opinion, but it's a pretty minor problem. I wonder if the point of the fish was specifically to make it difficult to hold on to shells, adding to the challenge since those ended up being incredibly useful. Bringing in the Koopa, we were able to kill the spinies pretty easily. And hey, I got some one-ups too. When you kill the Koopas, the celebration kind of blocks your view a little bit there. Not a big deal. This jump was pretty tricky with the shell, as you can't twirl with a shell in your hands, but it is definitely doable. You can keep your shell through there if you hold right, but it's pretty easy to lose your shell. If you lose your shell, I kind of want to keep the car because there's another set of Koopa Troopas over a spike block like the previous room. I don't think I ever really interacted with these bullies. They seem not to contribute a whole lot to the level. This jump at the end is kind of nasty because there's only one tile of ground block. It makes me wonder which order of pipes the creator used and if they had a particular on-off. Did they do pipe 3 first, as I'm planning to do? The position of the exit pipes definitely makes it seem as though you're supposed to go 1, 2, 3, not 3, 2, 1. Then on to pipe 3. Not that it matters too much, but this is another case where a creator ghost playback would be a nice feature, even if only available after clearing a level. Though I do enjoy the puzzle solving and routing through levels like these, I'm still curious what the level creator did. One of the first things to consider in this room is if the thwomps in the room above are going to trigger the on-offs. Fortunately, it seems they don't. How strange this section seemed made me wonder if this was the exit pipe, but the upcoming door off the ground confirmed this was the right direction. I killed the Koopa in this room many times. It seemed like a strange requirement to get the shell, but I couldn't figure out another way through. I died a lot in pipe 3. One of the fun ways that helped me keep going was slowly developing faster strategies to get to pipe 3. The best I got was 473 on the timer as I entered the pipe. Was this supposed to be an alternating on-off timing challenge or a precision challenge? I still don't know. I first tried alternating, but that seemed too much. A few jumps seem to have multiple options for getting through. I tried a few, but ultimately picked one that seemed reasonable and stuck with it. For this one, I first tried a long jump. Didn't work. After that, I did small jumps and twirls pretty much every time. This configuration of on-offs and jumps seemed the easiest, but not necessarily the only way through. The thwomp section looked somewhat scary, but I think it's mostly because I was nervous after finally making it through the first part of pipe 3. Being able to stand in the middle of 2 on-off spikes made this section and the boss fight much calmer, though there are quicker strategies for getting through. This was actually a surprisingly interesting and reasonable boss fight. With patience, it was pretty reasonably clearable. But not every time. After this fight, I wanted to make sure the on-off state was off, though sometimes I forgot. Full disclosure, I took a break from pipe 3 to pipe 4, but the video is edited to keep sections together, so you may notice the timer wouldn't otherwise make sense. So into pipe 4. Without a shell, I wasn't sure what to do. I could flip the switch, but I couldn't go right if I did. And this jump seemed excessively difficult. It took me a few tries to get the shell there since it was pretty easy to lose, but eventually I figured out a path that worked pretty well. Once again in this level, as seems to be a theme, it felt wrong, it seemed required. Up next was the auto-scrolling section. In this section, there definitely seemed to be a potential path with the on-off state on. Was this supposed to be an icicle jump? It seemed like the on-off state was skipping otherwise implied tricks. Meowser didn't seem to be too much of an issue. You mostly just ran away until the final room. This on-off section was a bit confusing, but not a big deal. There were a few options for getting through those Koopa Troopas and into this glass pipe. One was using a shell. One was using a Koopa car. I got to the final room, got the POW, and got sniped by Bowser. I was convinced this was good enough since I basically completed the section, so time to get the clear. I'd played this section many times at this point, so I had a pretty good path down. The speed route had some interesting parts, but I think could have felt a lot nicer if certain moving components, like these mushroom platforms, lined up differently. The fish were annoying to route, but ultimately worked out better. I have to give the creator credit with this boss fight. Every time the positions Pom Pom landed made the fight different in a non-trivial way. Differences with the thwomp, the spike configuration, the low-hanging spikes on the left all contributed to slight variations in how to dodge and how to attack. It was simple to understand the various components and know what your options were pretty quickly. Dynamic, fair, and challenging boss fights are rare to come by. Had to make sure the on-off state was off, otherwise it was much more difficult. This exit pipe being so close to pipe 4 is an example of why I thought the implied order was 1, 2, 3. But it really didn't make sense to play the level that way from a difficulty standpoint. The backtracking also felt less clean, though that could be simply because I practiced it much less. But anyway, I was on to pipe 2. This pipe was the least interesting in my opinion, though perhaps because the only challenge was negated by the on-off state. The timer on screen started about 40 minutes after I started playing the level, since I forgot to start it right away. So I was about 2 hours into playing the level at this point. Each time I made it to pipe 1, I was excited and nervous to have a shot at finishing the clear condition and attempting the exit pipe. You can tell by how much more slowly I moved through this room as compared to my practice attempts that I was nervous. And this made things line up differently and made them less predictable. I killed all 3 pom-poms. Because I was nervous, at this point, my speed strats went out the window. Generally, this is a very bad idea. Probably as a result of this, I lost my Koopa. Since I needed it, I had to respawn it. Things were not going according to plan. Plus, I was starting to run out of time. Thanks in part to this last second change, enemies were out of the positions where I expected them. Fish and their interaction with changing water height had high risks of killing either me or my shell. But thankfully I made it to the final pipe. At the start, everything went smoothly, just like I practiced. A little bit of waiting, no surprises. The first thing that went wrong is the Koopa car died. Something I hadn't planned for. So I tried to jump I never tried in practice. Luckily it worked. With the timer counting down, Meowser needed to behave. Though the chances of Meowser being out of reach were lower because this Meowser didn't have wings, I still needed a bit of cooperation. Killed Meowser, things were looking good. I went to the exit box for the final pipe. We did it. I have no idea at the end of these levels if they were good or not. A lot in this level had me questioning if I was doing it right. The challenges were enjoyable, but there really was no reason for not having a checkpoint. Not having checkpoints made this level much more repetitive. But ultimately, I enjoyed the adventure, so I'm happy this level exists. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great rest of your day.